Make sure our project directory is set in the Dynamics folder again. Click OK. Let's go to File, and we're going to load a scene from the Scenes folder called MotionDynamics2.fxs. In the previous lesson, we used springs to generate cages that push and pull objects around so they can fight gravity. In this lesson, we're going to use a different set of springs called hold springs inside Motion Dynamics. Let's go into Animate for now, and we're going to set our tail dynamics. We're going to deactivate the effect so they don't use any calculations, and we're also going to set the Motion Dynamics node to none so we don't have to see our springs. Let's go to the head and click into Setup. Middle mouse click and highlight Neck 1. We're going to add the Motion Dynamics effect to Neck 1. Click plus key next to the pull down to add that. We're going to drag this down to the bottom of the list and call it cam_neck dynamics. Let's name the Motion Dynamics node underneath it to cam_neck_motion dynamics. Let's go into Springs, create a new Spring Master, hold down the Shift key, and left mouse click and highlight the different spring starts. We're going to click on Make Hold Springs instead. Hold springs behave pretty much like the soft body dynamics hold that we used in previous lessons. It tries to keep the position of the spring with the weight applied closest to its setup position. To better illustrate that, we've created our hold springs. Let's go into Animate and press play. You see that it stops and it just bounces around because there's an imaginary spring going from where it's bouncing to back to the position it was when it was keyframed. While Neck Motion Dynamics is selected, let's go back into the springs inside Animate. Let's expand this and let's press play again. While our Spring Master is selected, let's turn translation off for all springs. And see it just decides to bounce and flop around regularly. Now each of these springs has a slightly different alteration on their values. Instead of max spring stretch, it's now max hold radius, which is measured in meters, is how far the object can bounce down. That means 1.1 meters up or down. You can think of that as kind of a translate limit. It can only move so far in all directions. Since we've turned off translation, this isn't going to matter as much at the beginning, but towards the end that still counts as translation, so you can stop it immediately. Let's go back to Motion Dynamics again. Our spring strength determines how much it tries to hold the object back in its original position. Our spring weight determines how much the spring actually weighs. That'll tell you how much it will fall and how much influence gravity has. Spring damping affects how much it's going to resist bouncing around. So with all of that said, let's just mess around with the spring weight. Let's press go again. And we're going to start with spring 1 since the first spring is all frozen in place. So spring 1, we're going to set the spring weight to 0.3. You can see that it's lighter, so it's pulling a lot faster. Spring 2, the spring weight is going to be set to 0.6, and spring 3, spring weight is 0.9. So you have a very floppy end and a very stiff beginning. From here you can go ahead and apply the global weight in the gravity scale and turn up the damping. Now the other way you can change it is adjust the spring strength. If you shift select all of these, you can just change everything back to its original position. So let's see what we get. We press play and we change the spring strength. So say the first spring on spring 1 is going to be 0.3. It's going to be more floppy than the edge one. If we change it to 3 times as strong, it's going to try and pull it up higher. Change our spring strength on this one to twice as strong, and the original stays. We still get the same amount of floppiness. And we can also mess with the weight as well, so the stronger springs get the heavier weight and the lighter springs get the lesser weight. So you can do all sorts of things on here. You also have the ability to draw springs to these hold springs, so they can be held and they can also be pulled around by other springs. They're all being done on the same calculations if they're all inside the same effect. This is just a basic explanation on how to set up hold springs. If you need to do jiggling bellies or anything, you don't need to set up entire networks. You only need one or two bones parented to each other. Let's go to File. We're going to save this scene as MotionDynamics2.fxs.